The late-night talk show host, the affable singer of carpool karaoke, the man who seemed to embody Americanized British charm. That was the public image of James Corden. But in October 2022, a single, swift act of professional excommunication from a New York restaurateur ripped a hole in that carefully crafted facade. The owner of Balthazar, a celebrated French brasserie, took to social media and declared Corden the most abusive customer to his staff, citing multiple incidents of what he called ungracious and nasty behavior over a disputed omelet. For a man whose entire brand was built on being likable, the Balthazar ban was not just a public relations disaster. It was a perfect, damning metaphor. It was the moment the world saw the waiter's perspective, the thin line that separates the celebrity from the person, and how easily that affable smile can turn into a demand for perfection enforced by toxic behavior. This is the hidden crisis that defines our entire list. Every individual we are about to examine, the 10 most hated actors and celebrities in modern Hollywood, shares this fatal disconnect. They are stars whose off-camera actions, controversies, professional conflicts, and profound lack of self-awareness have created a public persona so grating, so difficult, or so toxic that it has fundamentally overshadowed their on-screen work. We are going beyond bad movies or failed projects. We are looking at career-defining failures of character. From the political firebrands who alienate entire audiences, to the on-set tyrants who terrorize their colleagues, to the wellness gurus whose privileged aloofness sparks national fury. These are the actors who systematically burn the very bridges that carried them to fame. Our journey begins at the number 10 spot, reserved for the celebrity whose success is as massive as the cultural critique he inspires, working our way down to the ultimate, most shocking case of the actor whose manufactured charm melted under the heat of public scrutiny. Top 10. Tyler Perry, The Assembly Line. Securing the number 10 position on our countdown is a man who is arguably the most successful independent producer and director in modern Hollywood history, Tyler Perry. His inclusion on a list of hated actors is not rooted in the traditional complaints of on-set difficulty or personal scandal, but rather in a persistent, decades-long critique of his creative output. It is a unique form of industry and cultural resentment directed at a man who built a creative empire by defying the rules, and in doing so, created a formula that many critics find creatively stagnant and even culturally regressive. The latest news cycle surrounding Perry only intensifies this debate. In 2025, he announced a staggering slate of 5 new projects slated for Netflix alone, including the comedy series She the People, the drama Straw starring Taraji P. Henson, and another installment of his most divisive creation, Medea's Destination Wedding. This level of relentless, high-volume production is the root of the problem. Perry, who notoriously writes, directs, and produces many of his projects, has created a movie-making assembly line at his sprawling Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta. While this level of control and speed is unprecedented, a model often praised by business schools, it comes at a severe creative cost. Critics accuse him of prioritizing quantity over quality, of rushing projects through a rigid, formulaic structure that is cheap, efficient, and creatively limiting. The common critique of a Perry project is that it relies on melodrama, caricature, and a heavy-handed moralism that often fails to explore the complex realities of the characters. Furthermore, his reliance on using a very limited number of sets, particularly his signature Rich People's House set, has become a running joke and a symbol of his reluctance to invest in location scouting or fresh production design, feeding the perception of creative laziness. The deeper layer of animosity comes from a frustrated corner of the Black artistic community. Perry successfully cornered the market on movies targeting a Black Christian demographic that Hollywood had long ignored. However, in doing so, some argue he has monopolized the funding and distribution channels for Black-led storytelling, frequently using tropes and narratives that are seen as reductive. In the eyes of his most ardent detractors, he is both a hero for creating opportunities where none existed and a villain for stifling more nuanced, sophisticated voices that do not fit his proven, profitable blueprint. The anger is less about Tyler Perry the person and more about Tyler Perry the machine, a one-man studio whose massive, unapologetic commercial success stands as a monument to formula over finesse, earning him the number 10 spot as the actor whose relentless production has made him an object of enduring, widespread artistic critique. Top 9. Gwyneth Paltrow, the Goop Guru. At number 9, we encounter Gwyneth Paltrow, a former Oscar-winning actress whose presence on this list is defined by a singular, profitable word, goop. Unlike the on-set bullies or the politically incendiary figures to follow, the backlash against Paltrow is a sophisticated, simmering resentment directed at her perceived privilege, her clinical aloofness, and her remarkable talent for commodifying the utterly absurd. The hatred stems not from scandal, but from a persistent public feeling that she is fundamentally out of touch with reality, yet somehow manages to get rich by selling that fantasy. Paltrow's journey from a celebrated actress to a lifestyle mogul has been marked by memorable, cringe-inducing quotes that became cultural shorthand for celebrity detachment, such as her infamous suggestion that she would rather smoke crack than eat cheese from a can. Her brand, Goop, built around luxury wellness, has successfully convinced millions to embrace expensive, scientifically dubious practices, leading to costly legal battles over claims made about products like the infamous "This smells like my vagina" candle. What makes her such a target of public derision is how easily she is able to turn controversy into capital. The latest news cycle shows her at the peak of her monetization power. Following a bizarre, unrelated viral social media scandal involving her ex-husband's band, Coldplay, and a data startup named Astronomer, Paltrow quickly and silently inserted herself into the public narrative. She reportedly pocketed a significant sum by becoming a temporary spokesperson for the company, without ever acknowledging the specific viral drama, simply reinforcing her persona as a woman who knows exactly how to profit from chaos. It is a calculated move that demonstrates a profound understanding of her public image and the ultimate lack of engagement with the absurdity of it all. This distant, highly curated public performance was also evident in her recent, minor on-set blunder for the upcoming film Marty Supreme, where she genuinely mistook co-star Timothée Chalamet's acne makeup for real blemishes and offered him unsolicited skincare advice. This moment, small as it is, perfectly encapsulates the critique, the image of a privileged star dispensing effortless yet fundamentally incorrect advice from her high perch. Paltrow is hated because she represents the ultimate celebrity success story, born not of relatable talent, but of untouchable, monetized privilege. Top 8. Steven Seagal, the Russian diplomat. If Gwyneth Paltrow represents the mild friction of celebrity aloofness, Steven Seagal, at number 8, represents the total collapse of a screen persona into a figure of international political and personal toxicity. His is a case of an action hero, whose real-life actions have made him far more dangerous and unforgivable than any cinematic villain he ever faced. Seagal's reputation for being difficult on set dates back decades, with consistent reports of him being abrasive, unprepared, and prone to bullying. However, the true source of public disgust stems from the decades of persistent, severe allegations of sexual harassment and assault that have followed him throughout his career, casting a shadow so dark it completely obliterates any nostalgia for his early film work. These accusations, compounded by his inability to settle legal debts, such as the $200,000 penalty collection authorized by a U.S. judge in 2021 related to an SEC accusation, paint a portrait of a man consistently running from accountability. But it is his political allegiance that has made him an object of international condemnation and cemented his place on this list. Since the mid-2010 seconds, Seagal has transformed from a disgraced Hollywood figure into a pro-Kremlin mouthpiece, embracing Russian citizenship and consistently supporting Russian foreign policy, going so far as to become a special envoy to the U.S. The latest and most defining event in this narrative was his attendance at the Victory Day military parade in Moscow in May 2025. Seated prominently alongside pro-Kremlin figures and motorcycle groups, Seagal's presence was a jarring, undeniable statement about where his loyalties lie. His active and vocal support for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, coupled with his willingness to be used as a propaganda tool, has been viewed by many in the West as a deliberate, calculated betrayal. This transformation is deeply disturbing. An American actor, once synonymous with 1,990 seconds bravado, actively lending his diminished celebrity to a geopolitical conflict. Steven Seagal's hatred is comprehensive. It is born of confirmed toxicity in his private life, professional difficulty on set, and an unforgivable political alignment that makes him a pariah in the eyes of his former audience and colleagues. He is a shell of a star, now defined by the darkness he willingly embraced. Top 7. Roseanne Barr, the second cancellation. At number 7 is Roseanne Barr, a legendary television figure whose career is a textbook study in catastrophic self-sabotage. Her hatred is a volatile cocktail of political outrage, professional betrayal, and the deep disappointment of fans who watched her destroy a celebrated comeback with a single, reckless act. Barr's career has been marked by extremes: pioneering feminist comedic success, followed by chaotic, boundary-pushing failure, followed by an improbable, triumphant return, and finally, a resounding, permanent expulsion. The source of the modern animosity is the infamous 2018 incident, a racist tweet targeting Valerie Jarrett, a former senior advisor to President Barack Obama. The tweet was so egregious and immediate that ABC canceled the highly successful revival of her sitcom, Roseanne, within hours. The damage was incalculable, erasing hundreds of jobs and millions in revenue. Barr's subsequent bizarre attempts at apology, including claiming she was influenced by Ambien and later alleging that God told her to post the message, only deepened the perception of her as erratic and unapologetically toxic. Even years after her cancellation, Barr continues to command media attention through intentional provocation. She recently sold her macadamia nut farm in Hawaii and relocated to Texas Hill Country, but the move has not quelled her online antics. In September 2025, she made headlines again for a public meltdown after being compared to late-night hosts like Jimmy Kimmel, coupled with strange, rambling social media posts targeting Stephen Colbert and Howard Stern. These incidents reaffirm a crucial pattern. Barr refuses to disappear quietly. She is a figure fueled by grievance and a desire to court controversy, ensuring that her legacy is permanently intertwined with her most inflammatory statements rather than her groundbreaking comedic achievements. For Hollywood, she is an impossible liability. For the audience, she is a reminder of how quickly genius can curdle into bitterness and bigotry, earning her the 7th spot on our list. Top 6. Andy Dick, the comedy casualty. The number 6 spot is occupied by Andy Dick, a comedian and actor whose name has become synonymous with chronic, highly public self-destruction. Unlike the others on this list who were defined by power, privilege, or political divisiveness, Dick's hatred is often mixed with a profound sadness for a talent utterly annihilated by personal demons. He is a tragic figure in comedy, a casualty of chronic substance abuse, and a pattern of alleged predatory and volatile behavior that has rendered him an outcast. Dick was once a familiar face in the 1990 seconds and early 2000s, known for his eccentric energy on shows like News Radio. However, his career trajectory quickly became dominated by his personal life. A decades-long cycle of arrests, relapses, and public incidents involving erratic conduct and alleged sexual misconduct. His controversies are not fleeting moments of poor judgment, but a consistent, documented record of behavior that became intolerable to his colleagues and the public. Key moments in his downfall include his 2019 assault outside a New Orleans nightclub, and more recently, his 2022 arrest for alleged sexual assault on a camping ground, a devastating legal charge that underscores the severity of his personal crisis. Today, Andy Dick's professional life is a near-total blackout. His current work consists largely of voiceover roles for video games and low-profile film projects, a stark contrast to his past celebrity. The latest news report, which speculates on his minimal net worth for 2025 estimated at around $300,000, serves as a depressing financial marker for a man who squandered immense opportunities. Andy Dick is hated because his erratic, often criminal, behavior has consistently victimized those around him, making him a perpetual professional liability and a moral concern. He represents the painful truth that while addiction can be viewed with sympathy, consistent, harmful behavior toward others is unforgivable. His placement at number 6 is a reflection of a career that was derailed not by choice of genre or political opinion, but by a level of personal instability that made him professionally uninsurable and socially unacceptable. Top 5. Amy Schumer, the authenticity backlash. Standing at number 5 is Amy Schumer, a comedian whose public hatred is a complicated product of her own aggressive brand of self-exposure. Her inclusion is unique because the vitriol is directed not at a crime or political affiliation, but at the very nature of her comedy, her insistence on radical honesty. When a performer's entire brand is built on authenticity, Any perceived misstep, whether it is joke, theft, or too much information, fatigue, is interpreted as a fundamental betrayal, leading to a deep, visceral backlash. Schumer burst onto the scene with a refreshing, raunchy style that often centered on her own life, sexuality, and body image. However, she has battled persistent, career-damaging accusations of joke theft throughout her rise, a charge that undermines the core tenet of her work, that she is telling her truth. When the authenticity is questioned, the humor often collapses. Her current public life is a non-stop, confessional performance that often leaves audiences exhausted. Most recently, she publicly addressed swirling rumors of a split from her husband, Chris Fisher, in an attempt to control the narrative. She insisted that whatever the state of her marriage, it has nothing to do with weight loss or autism, referencing both her use of the drug Mounjaro for weight loss and her husband's autism diagnosis. Furthermore, she was disarmingly open about her recent cosmetic surgery and the use of the drug, claiming her health journey was necessary to survive a disease causing facial puffiness. While her fans applaud this level of openness, her detractors see it as a desperate, chaotic attempt to keep herself in the spotlight, relentlessly turning her private life into public spectacle. Amy Schumer is hated because, for many, her loud, abrasive persona has simply worn thin. Her constant use of shock value and self-deprecating humor, once celebrated, has become perceived as grating and inauthentic, making her the subject of widespread online mockery and fatigue. She is the comedian who tried to be too real, and in the process, alienated a huge swathe of her audience. Top 4. Rob Schneider, the political punchline. At number 4 is Rob Schneider, an actor who has spent the last decade systematically dismantling his own career by prioritizing extreme political activism over his comedic craft. His story is one of an absolute and uncompromising shift in public persona, from a recognizable Saturday Night Live and Adam Sandler collaborator to a firebrand political figure whose outspoken views have made him unemployable in mainstream Hollywood. The hatred for Schneider is almost entirely driven by his radical and often factually incorrect anti-vaccination and conservative commentary. He has become a darling of the fringe and a pariah to the mainstream, often using his platform to promote misinformation and offensive material. The consequences of this choice have been immediate and professional. The most glaring example occurred in June 2024, when he was removed mid-set from a Canadian fundraising event for the Hospitals of Regina Foundation. His jokes about vaccines, women, and transgender people were deemed so inappropriate and offensive that the organizers abruptly cut his performance short, leading to widespread public embarrassment. This professional self-sabotage continued into the following year. In October 2025, Schneider faced massive online criticism for a tweet falsely claiming that children's hospitals did not exist when he was a child, a statement that was easily debunked and mocked. This moment perfectly crystallized the public's frustration. An actor who uses his celebrity to spread highly divisive, easily disproven rhetoric. Rob Schneider is hated because he has deliberately chosen to alienate the vast majority of his audience. His career is now defined not by his comedy, but by the controversy he chases. He represents the actor who valued his freedom to be incendiary over his professional standing, becoming an object of derision for those who view his political stances as reckless and dangerous, confirming his rank as one of Hollywood's most toxic former stars. Top 3. Pauly Shore, the Weasel's Whimper. Sliding into the number 3 spot is Pauly Shore, an actor and comedian whose hatred is a reflection of generational comedic failure. He is not hated for political malice or abusive behavior, but for an abrasive, lowbrow persona, the Weasel, that died a fast death in the mid-1990 seconds and has since refused to stay buried. Shore's career is a cautionary tale of celebrity fleetingness, marked by a string of critical flops that eventually earned him multiple Razzie nominations for Worst Actor. The public dislike is rooted in a simple but powerful sentiment. His comedy was not funny, and his attempts to remain relevant are perceived as cringeworthy desperation. The latest chapter in this narrative revolves around his intense and largely unauthorized pursuit of a Richard Simmons biopic. Shore, noting an uncanny resemblance to the fitness guru, has campaigned relentlessly to portray him. He even released a short film teaser, The Court Jester, in early 2024 to push the idea. However, the move was immediately met with a statement from the reclusive Richard Simmons himself, who publicly declared he had never given Shore or anyone else permission to make a movie about his life. This situation perfectly encapsulates why Shore garners such animosity. His desperate need for a comeback role has led him to pursue a high-profile project without the subject's permission, crossing a line into what is viewed as an exploitation of Simmons's privacy for his own professional gain. It is seen as a final, desperate plea for relevance, lacking the dignity or creative foresight that might have signaled a true career pivot. Pauly Shore is hated because he is the ghost of a bad joke, a performer whose shtick expired 30 years ago, and whose current actions only serve as a painful reminder of his inability to move beyond a persona the public overwhelmingly rejected. TOP2 Chevy Chase, the set terror. At number 2, we find a foundational figure in modern comedic history who has earned the unflattering title of Hollywood's most notorious terror on set, Chevy Chase. His hatred is not just popular, it is institutional. It comes from the producers, writers, co-stars, and crew who have suffered under his notoriously arrogant, volatile, and often bigoted conduct over 5 decades. His talent for physical comedy was always overshadowed by a personal toxicity that became legendary. Chase's reputation for being abusive and difficult extends back to the earliest days of Saturday Night Live, where he famously sparred with Bill Murray. However, the most definitive conflict of his later career was his disastrous run on the NBC sitcom Community. Chase repeatedly clashed with creator Dan Harmon and his co-stars, culminating in a 2012 exit following an alleged racial slur and constant arguments over the show's direction. Years later, Chase remains spectacularly unrepentant. In a highly publicized September 2023 interview, he reignited the conflict by openly calling Community not funny enough for him and expressed disdain for having to sit at that table every day with those people. This refusal to acknowledge his own contribution to the toxic atmosphere, combined with his continuous sniping at the show's success and the talent of his former colleagues, ensures he remains a figure of deep, professional resentment. Chevy Chase is hated because he represents the worst qualities of an unchecked comedy superstar: the arrogance, the ego, and the willingness to terrorize a set to enforce his own fragile demands. Unlike actors whose careers were derailed by drugs or politics, Chase's downfall was born simply of extreme, continuous professional unpleasantness. For the industry, he is the definitive example of difficult behavior, cementing his place as the second most hated actor in Hollywood. Top 1. James Corden, The Unmasking. We finally arrive at number 1. The most hated actor on our list is James Corden, the man whose professional toxicity was so shocking precisely because his entire celebrity was built on the inverse: an overwhelming manufactured charm. Corden's hatred is the most potent because it represents a profound sense of public betrayal, the moment the mask slipped and revealed a dark truth behind the friendly smile. The defining scandal, the incident that exposed the core fault line in his persona, was the 2022 Balthazar ban. The New York restaurant owner's public account of Corden's abusive, entitled behavior toward staff over a dispute about an egg yolk did more damage to his brand than years of bad reviews could ever have accomplished. It confirmed a rumor that had long circulated in industry circles. The on-screen grace was a calculated performance, and the off-screen reality was one of demanding ungraciousness. Corden's move to step down from The Late Late Show in 2023, while framed as a return to family in the UK, was widely interpreted as an escape from the public scrutiny that followed the Balthazar incident and the subsequent resurfacing of other anecdotes about his entitled conduct. His entire successful run-the-viral carpool karaoke segments, the musical numbers, the affable interviews, were now retroactively viewed through the lens of a man who was performing likability rather than possessing it. The public felt duped, and the backlash was severe and unrelenting. Now, as James Corden prepares for a return to the American stage in August 2025 to star in the Broadway revival of the play, Art, critics are watching closely. This move is seen by many as an attempt to pivot back to his respected roots in theater, away from the demanding, personality-driven arena of American late-night television. However, the public memory is long. James Corden is the most hated actor because he committed the greatest sin in celebrity branding: the shocking, complete contradiction between his manufactured persona of kindness and the evidence of his off-camera entitlement. He is the ultimate proof that an actor can successfully fake it until they become a cultural lightning rod for hypocrisy. This list of 10 figures, from the prolific production line of Tyler Perry to the exposed hypocrisy of James Corden, is bound by a common tragic thread: the catastrophic failure to maintain a sustainable boundary between the public celebrity and the private person. For all 10, the cost of their authentic self, whether it manifested as political extremism, substance-fueled toxicity, or simple arrogance, far outweighed the value of their talent. They became characters defined not by the roles they played, but by the scandals they couldn't outrun. The lesson is clear. In the modern media ecosystem, celebrity is a fragile contract based on likability. And when that trust is broken by a racist tweet, an abusive demand in a restaurant, or years of harassing co-stars, the hatred is swift, comprehensive, and potentially terminal. For these 10 actors, the lights have not just dimmed, they have been entirely turned off by the audience they betrayed. If you want to dive deeper into the specific on-set feuds that crippled Chevy Chase's career, or explore the financial scandals that still plague Steven Seagal, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to Behind the Lights for more deep dive investigations.